Hey, welcome to Stunner Stage. This is my third episode. Still doing it kind of all by myself, trying to put it all together. It takes a little bit of time, but I hope you enjoy them. Please feel free to like, subscribe, make comments. Let me know who you'd like me to interview. Let me know if you want to come on. Who knows? Make some time and talk some stories. Today's episode features a former bandmate of mine and a great friend of mine, Mr. Michael Costello. We're going to talk about how he started, where he started, his huge Kiss fandom, some of his first bands. We'll talk about Anthem a little bit, touch base on a couple other key things that had happened in his life, and you'll get a little guest spot from Gus. So, without further ado, Mr. Michael Costello. Mr. Michael Costello. Hi.
Hi.
Thank you so much for coming here, man.
Thanks for having me.
So the first thing I want to ask, and I usually ask everybody, what was the first thing you remember musically that spoke to you? As young as you can go, the first thing that said music was your thing.
It's kind of a loaded question because, it's always been there. From as young as I have memories, my dad was always playing his 45s, like doo-wop and original rock and roll, Elvis and Buddy Holly and Bo Diddley and Chuck Berry. And
wow. So you started then as a fan right away as a kid.
Just music was always there. Even going to my grandma and grandpa's house, we'd hang out with my Uncle Tom, and that's when I got introduced to Kiss and the Police and the Who. And
so how old were you when you felt something more than just appreciation to listen to music? How old were you when you started tinkering or wanted to make your own?
Realistically, it was probably the Paul Lynde Halloween special in 1976.
Wow, dude.
And
what were you, like 3?
I was 4 years old.
4 years old.
And
okay.
the next day, we went to Maplewood Mall, and that was the first album that me and my brother kind of bought together was Kiss Destroyer.
Oh my God, I love that album.
Yeah,
love that album. I'm lucky enough now. I get to play, Detroit Rock City pretty regular.
Yeah.
I know back in the Anthem days, it was like, Stun doesn't want to play any Kiss. It wasn't necessarily that. I just didn't want to play Cold Gin anymore. So Destroyer is your first album.
Yeah.
And you're how old? Like
4 years old.
4 years old. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what happens next?
Well, gosh, I remember, we had everything Kiss. The makeup kit, the lunchbox, you name it, the puzzles. I still have some old Kiss puzzles. But we made our own guitars out of plywood and 2x4s and painted them up and made all the outfits. And
so Kiss got you into acting the role.
That's really it did just start the desire to I want to be like that. They were more like superheroes though to us at the time.
Yeah, big time. Yeah.
But my like I say, going to my grandma and grandpa's house, my Uncle Tom influenced me on some of that stuff. So I was listening to Kiss since Kiss came out in '74.
Wow.
But my other uncle, he'd play guitar in bands, and his band used to rehearse in their basement. So there was a drum set down there. So I remember my Uncle Tom showed me kind of my first beat that I could kind of play. So for Christmas in first grade, I got a drum set.
Oh my
God!
The
Galaxy 3000, probably out of the Ward's catalog or Sears catalog.
Oh yeah. My first was a harmony guitar out of the Montgomery Ward's catalog.
Yeah.
That was my first instrument that was bought for me. There was school, So school every year you got to sign up for something back then, and I played trumpet and cornet and slide trombone and all that, but guitar first one. I think I was 12,
Yeah.
and Montgomery Ward's catalog or whatever. Yeah.
Huh.
So you're how old are you when you get the drum set?
Well, I'd say first grade, so
Is that like 8, 7?
six,
Wow.
6, 7, I suppose. Yeah,
So you've been exposed to music your whole life.
pretty much. Yeah, I mean, and I can't say I ever really understood fully how to play the drums. I mean, I wasn't really playing beats and stuff. It was more bang around and just kind of,
Yeah.
you know.
When did you start guitar?
Well, so that was it was like the end of ninth grade, and that's a story I've shared many times with a lot of different people. It's like, what made you want to play guitar? And through all those different things that were always going on, um, prior to that, I remember MTV aired Woodstock Uncut,
Like the 1969
the
Woodstock?
original
Okay.
Woodstock, and they played it uncut. And I just was like, just blown away. I mean, it was long, but I remember like Alvin Lee and 10 Years After, like Ted Nugent before Ted Nugent existed,
Yep.
and,
Yep.
and the next week I bought a guitar and an amp from a friend's sister, and it was a Court Effector. It was shaped like an Explorer. It had built-in effects on it, little buttons. You had distortion and echo and
Right in the
chorus,
guitar?
and yeah,
Okay.
yeah, had wah on it, and um, yeah, and I'm left-handed, but
I did not know that.
yeah,
So you're a left-handed person playing guitar, right-handed.
yeah, and if it wasn't for that specific guitar that I bought, I mean, because almost any other shape you could probably hold upside down,
Right.
but that Explorer, it just wouldn't sit on your leg right, left-handed, so I had to play it this way, and that was like the best accident, whatever thing that happened ever. I mean, all
I've
the
always
guitars I
thought
have
that too.
now,
Like Wayne Enns, one of my earliest guitar players back in Avalanche days, he's left-handed and plays right-handed. And he came to me at one time and he goes, "Listen, this is how the instrument's meant to be played, not upside down and backwards." So I learned it that way. You don't turn a piano backwards just because you're left-handed.
right?
And a lot of drummers even feel that way too. Like even left-handed drummers, they learn to play right-handed because when you go and sit in somewhere, oh, hang on, I got to move this whole drum kit backwards now.
Right.
So you learn the instrument that's in front of you. Sometimes you cater and make it yours.
Yeah.
But I've met a lot of people that have just learned it. This is the most common way that this instrument exists, and I'm going to learn it this way.
Yeah.
And so you were one of them that just said,
Yeah.
this is how I got to learn to play it.
Yeah.
Both hands were, one was better at writing and throwing and whatever, but they both needed to learn what they needed to do.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
that's great.
And I've told a lot of people that too. Just in music retail, it's like there's obviously more right-handed guitars than left-handed guitars. Left-handed guitars are more expensive and far, very few options.
Mm-hmm.
But also, if your left hand's your dominant hand and that's doing all your fretboard work and all that, I mean, you almost have an advantage there.
True. I
I mean,
didn't think about
either
that.
way, like you say, I mean,
You're still teaching both hands something brand new.
yeah, it's like a saxophone, a flute, clarinet, anything else. It's just you just have to play it that way.
That's the way. Yeah. So you were forced because of the guitar that you had.
Yep.
Now, did this guitar just drop in your lap, or were you looking for it? I mean, with all the effects and stuff, was it more of a pain in the butt, or was it like, oh, this is cool?
It was a guitar, and I paid $70 for the guitar and the amp, and well, it's great. I just wanted something to start, start learning.
So ninth grade. Now, Did it become an obsession right away? Did you take lessons right away? Did you lock yourself in your room for 3 years? What what was your experience actually starting the instrument and getting there?
It was kind of a little of all of that. I mean, I remember when I got it, my brother was like, I tried it and it didn't last for me, and
Yeah.
it's not going to last for you either. That was just, you know, fuel for the fire.
So, playing guitar, got your guitar, ninth grade, locked yourself in the room, wanted to play every day. Did you still have sports or anything else, or was it all about guitar?
That was the turning point. I was in sports up to then, and by the time 10th grade came around, I was already kind of, on my way. I mean, I at first I took a couple lessons from my brother's buddy. Um, and then eventually I did take some lessons at the Music Connection where I still work.
Oh wow! So that goes back to that young.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they were in a different space. It was a smaller space, but it was literally right next door to where they are now. But yeah,
Okay.
Matt Mathias, and there was two guys in Forest Lake that were the shredders that were like, 6 years older than I was, and it was Mike Litchie and Matt Mathias, and they're both just insane guitar players. And Litchie is finally now playing. He does a solo act, but he's just like, he'll take any song and just shred over it for.
So that didn't frustrate you as a guitar player starting out, having these people that you're close to being way better?
No, because like I said, I took lessons from Matt, and I saw Litchie around, and it was motivational. It was, as soon as I got a handle on scales and modes, I just, that's when I locked myself in the bedroom, and didn't really go out on the weekends or anything. And there was I'm trying to remember if it was Hot Rockin' 104 or if it was Stereo 101 or what the radio station
Oh, I remember Hot Rockin' 104.
But there used to be Metal Shop on. And it was, I can't
Now,
remember.
you sure that wasn't Z Rock
No,
on
it
Hot
wasn't.
Rockin'
It
104?
wasn't Z-Rock. I
Okay.
remember it was a show called Metal Shop, and I want to say it was Saturday nights from like 10 to 1 or midnight to 3 or something. I don't know, but
Yeah.
but I used to just sit in my room and try to play along with everything. If there was songs I didn't have, I had my cassette recorder, the stereo, whatever, and I just kind of make record songs as
You
I
put the little
could find them.
paper tab in there so you could record over the old Bee Gees cassettes or anything. I found this old cassette that my dad had. Now it's going to be my rock tunes.
Yeah.
Yep, I remember those days very well.
But yeah, that first year was really kind of just massive growth from just, again, I mean, I was always good at math and science, and there's a lot of math in music.
Mm-hmm. Math, patterns, all that stuff.
Yeah, so again, once I just figured out scales and started piecing all the positions together and start to visualize the roadmap of the fingerboard, it just was.
And that was all really self-realization. After a couple of lessons, you just kind of went in and started studying yourself to get better.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like school guitar class or music class in school. Because you're a little younger than I, not by much, but was band in school as much for you? Was there music class as much for you?
Well, I mean, I was in choir.
Okay, all right. That's the reason you pull off every harmony there is.
Yeah, I think it was choir, band, or general music.
Okay.
So, and I think general music, there was a guitar thing or something like that. But I took choir in 7th grade, and I think that was the end of it. I think I was in for 1 year, and kind of moved on from there. But
okay, so you found guitar in ninth grade. You fell in love with guitar and pretty much locked yourself in your room and studied and learned.
Yeah.
Now, music fan since 4. I gotta ask, what was your first concert then, and how old were you?
First concert, I think I was in 8th grade.
Okay, so before guitar.
Yeah,
All right.
and it was yeah, it would have been 8th grade. Uh, it was Alice Cooper and Megadeth, and I went to see Megadeth for the Peace. It was a Peace Sells tour.
Wow.
So, yep, me and a buddy of mine from school went, and I think that was the first one.
So that would be now. Alice Cooper was not playing First Avenue. So where did you?
That would have been the St. Paul Civic Center.
The Civic Center.
Yeah.
Okay. Embarrassing fact. My very first concert, I took the 9 bus down 7th Street from the east side of St. Paul to the Civic Center to see Motley Crue with Loudness.
Wow.
Now, I'm going to tell all the rockers out there that I went to see Loudness. But at the time,
Yeah.
I think it was Theater of Pain, and Motley Crue was pretty huge in our little burb. So that was mine.
Yeah.
So I think yours is cooler though. Alice Cooper and Megadeth.
Yeah.
There you go. I'll stand on that one all day.
Yeah.
So that also, to me, it seems like that would be something that would have driven you even more. Like you grew up on Kiss, you grew up on this stuff and the theatrics and the show, and then you go and you see Alice Cooper.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, in 8th grade, to me that must have been like even more like, I need to do this.
Mm-hmm.
I can do this. Let's do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So 8th grade, Alice Cooper and Megadeth. Nice.
Yeah.
Do you remember anything specific about that concert?
The one thing that I remember is that I was disappointed at how short Megadeth's set was. I want to say they played 6 tunes.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah.
But then they became one of the biggest bands out there. So I mean, it gave them the exposure they needed.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
and they also only had an album and a half really worth of material at that point.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
Yeah, but now I'm second guessing that because I'm trying to because I remember going to the Kiss Animalize tour. I don't remember if that was before or after the Megadeth show.
Well, they weren't in makeup then, so it doesn't leave the same impression.
No, not at all.
Well, so the Analyze tour, so you actually are one of the few people in this world that probably got to see Mark St. John play.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. And you were young, but did it sound like the record?
I mean, I liked it. I mean, I mean, it was, it was still Kiss.
Right.
And actually, I kind of got out of them. By the time the Elder came out, it was kind of like,
Well, the Elder crushed everybody.
Yeah.
I was like, what is this?
Yeah. Yeah. Then
and now you put it on and go,
yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, my first concert was Loudness was, I remember they were like really big right then to me and my close knit friends. People started out like it was a joke, but I'm like, it ain't a joke.
Yeah.
Like, Kiri Takazaki can play.
Yeah.
And they were pretty big. I liked them a lot. They came, God, it's still probably 15, 20 years now, to, I think it was like the main event or the High Five down in Burnsville. Remember when they had that club down there? It was probably 15 years ago, and I went and saw him, and he had a buzz cut hairdo with blonde hair, but man, he could still play.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That is one guy. I mean, I think I'm still in a Facebook group for that because he's just one of those guitar players. Like, there you go. You figured it out. Love that stuff. So what was your first band? What was your first, you're rocking guitar in your room and now you're going to go out there, and how did that happen? How did your first band happen?
Yeah. Well, I mean, had a drummer, a buddy that played drums that was only lived a couple miles away. So we used to get together and just kind of jam and stuff.
10th grade, ninth grade still?
Well, yeah, probably 10th grade. Yeah, I mean, I think I was probably in bands by 11th grade. Um, but yeah, so there was another kind of band that started. In fact, the bass player of that band, I played a bunch of bands with over the years. But they were called the Lost Cause, and we kind of knew those guys a little bit and went over and kind of sat in and jammed with them.
Is this still a Forest Lake kind of thing?
Yeah, yeah. I think they practiced in Linwood or something. But essentially after jamming with those guys a little bit, we took the band away from the drummer and the one guitar player, and the rest of the band came to play with us. And then we practiced above my mom and dad's garage, the infamous carriage house.
Okay. So that was back in the day when you couldn't have 6 bands. You couldn't be in 6 bands, kids.
No,
There was a time where you had to be loyal to your band. So this guy said, these guys can play. I'm going to take them and put them in my band. There was a time we used to go out to shows and headhunt. We need a guitar player. Let's go out this weekend and see who we can see.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So what was the name of that band then?
So it's almost a Spinal Tap thing. It was the Lost Cause, but then we changed the name to the Cause.
Oh, there you go. Because you were found. Yeah, you found yourselves.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, we did like they used to do these youth nights at the junior high. So we started doing those every once in a while. I don't remember how frequently they had those, but
now I never got into those. How do you get your band into the junior high dance or get-togethers? How does that? You're playing covers, of course.
Yep.
Okay. So what kind of covers were you playing?
Well, back then it was everything from U2 and the Cult and
the top 40 rock covers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And do you just talk to a teacher and say, I want to bring my band in?
Yeah, I want to say that somebody
you?
knew the principal
Okay.
of that school.
See, I was not that kid. When I was, I think 16, I just wanted to play music. I didn't even want to go to school anymore.
Yeah.
So I went to school occasionally. And I, built a little practice studio in my basement, and I had my buddy's band over, and we'd go down and we'd jam and this and that. And at 16, I was a late bloomer. My thing was, like, I started playing guitar when I was like 12 or 13, but I met my best friend Wally Borgen at about 12 or 13. And this guy played guitar way better than I could even come close to playing guitar. And that's why I asked you, like, having those shredders in your life, for you it was inspiring. For me, it was deflating.
Yeah.
Like I was like, I'm not going to be that guy. So put the guitar down, and I supportive cheerleader for quite a long time, and I would go to their shows and their band thing. He had a band at the time when I met him called Aftershock with his older brother Jeff. They ended up being an Avalanche with me years later. But I hung out with them, and I'd go over to their practices, and we were just best friends hanging out. And then they formed another band with some guys from school, not the same school, just people we met, and that was called Demonic Conception, and they would play house parties. So we were thrash. We weren't like top 40. We were like thrash. So there was no playing the high school dance or the junior high dance. Right. But they would play these house parties, and at the time, Walter wasn't the greatest singer and player. I think I told it before where they played Wake Up Dead, and that was fairly easy, but then it got complicated, and I just stood up and started singing. So all of a sudden, I found my spot. I was a singer now, and I sang for years. But then in the later years of Avalanche, I would be like, I don't want to just be the singer. I started playing guitar when I was a kid. I kind of wanted to do stuff, so then I picked up bass, and it was easier, and it was something Wally wasn't doing. So I could learn my own stuff and not have him like make me look stupid. So, but that was my thing, is like, I got into things and then I would get frustrated and find a different path. You didn't get frustrated. You got like galvanized and went headlong into it. You got inspired.
Yeah.
So that's really cool, because that shows a little bit difference in my history versus yours. You're inspired by potential challenge. I was like, I don't like this roadblock. I need to find a new way. So
Yeah.
So you got the cause, and you're playing junior high dances.
Yeah.
When did you meet the guys from Sanctus?
Well, before, I guess what leads up to that is I remember another thing that we got to do is there was a career day at a junior high.
Okay.
So we got the day out of school to go hang out at the junior high, and we were in the wrestling gym, and we just basically played music and talked to students and stuff, and said, yeah, if you want to play in the band, this and that, whatever. And that was a big turning point it turned into, because Metallica was out there, and we were picking up playing a lot of that stuff, not as a band because we had the female singer. And at that career day, everyone wanted to hear all these Metallica songs. So then by the end of the day, I mean, I was singing all the stuff and we were playing all this Metallica, and she was kind of sitting in the corner.
Oh.
And so the cause was once again a lost cause. And we regrouped and called ourselves Vertigo, and that was when we were doing more Metallica and Megadeth and Living Colour. And
oh wow, okay, so you went from top 40 to rock.
Yeah,
but that was probably about the time that metal was really becoming mainstream, right?
Yeah,
okay,
it was building, yeah,
because U2 and all that stuff, that was kind of like your 90s or late 80s 90s pop. And then there was the underground that was way more, let's do some thrashing.
Yeah.
So was this like 86, 87?
No, this would have been more like 89.
Okay. So that
88,
means
89, yeah.
So that means at that time, you're talking 88, 89. You're talking about all the thrash metal albums hitting. I mean, we're talking Anthrax, Among the Living, Testament's Practice What You Preach, Rain and Blood. All of those hit in like 86, 87.
Yep, 86, I always say, is the biggest year in metal.
Yeah, so 89, that's when the public was like, no, I don't want UB40 right now.
Yeah.
I want something heavy.
Yeah.
That I still consider that the fact that I grew up in that era was so lucky for me, because metal has never been that big as it was right there. And I was 19, 18 when it hit, and it'll be there forever for me now.
Yeah, me too. I remember there was a chick a couple years older than me that had a crush on me or something. She used to give me all these cassettes. That's where I got Stormtroopers of Death and Hell Awaits, and trying to think of some of the other ones. But yeah, I mean, and I had a friend, John Masteller, that had all the obscure stuff like Rigor Mortis, Candlemass.
Oh God, yeah.
Kind of the more underground, less known
Grim
bands.
Reaper? Was he a
fan
of the Grim Reaper?
Yeah.
Grim Reaper. Steve Grimmett.
Yeah.
May he rest in peace.
Yeah. But yeah, and then and then I had a couple other buddies. I mean, you probably know Benji.
Oh, yeah.
Black Flood Diesel, and
Benji was in a band called Clockwise.
Clockwise.
They used to open for Avalanche back in the day, and then they switched over and did so much more stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember Benji from back then. I remember Clockwise playing open for us, and I was just like going, okay, these guys got something.
Yeah.
This is good.
That was,
I
I mean,
like
he's
this
actually
stuff.
my oldest friend. I've known him since first grade.
Oh my gosh, really?
I mean, he's another Forest Laker. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
First day of class, I had a light blue, one of those iron-on shirts. It was a light blue shirt with the like a hollow flake Kiss logo on it, and then he was chasing me around the playground, saying, "I want that shirt." Just. But yeah, I mean, and that was another thing that I mean, we were in sports together, and then it switched to music. And in fact, the drummer DK, that was Clockwise drummer, he was our drummer in 6 Feet Under. So I
Not the world famous death metal band 6 Feet Under.
that's what destroyed our 6 Feet Under.
Just want to be clear.
Yeah, because that's yeah. I mean, and that's getting back to Sanctus. That's where we met those guys for the first time. Was at one of those metal massacres. I think in like '93 or something.
Okay. Okay.
And then yeah, I remember I bought all the recording gear because we did a first demo at Music Tech when it was down on Washington across from the VU, and I was working at the store then. I graduated from college, and
Wait, sidetrack. What did you go to college for?
I went to the U of M for mechanical engineering.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Okay, so you could be working for 3M right now.
yeah, pretty much. No, but yeah, so I got my degree, and that's kind of how the whole music as a career started, really, because I took a job at the store just so I could be making some money while I interviewed, and then I kind of realized I could get deals on gear and stuff, and that's
Yeah.
I just kind of started buying gear, and we recorded our our second kind of, I don't know, I wouldn't call it an album. It was more of an EP because I think it was 4 tunes.
Mm-hmm.
But Chris Blood, we had him master it.
Chris Blood, the drummer of Sanctus.
The drummer of Sanctus, yeah.
Now I think he's with A440.
Yeah, or he was with A440, and then he's got Sonic Edge as his own
Sonic Edge. Okay. All
thing,
right.
I think. But yeah. And then yeah, it was, when 6 Feet Under fell apart because of, well, there was a number of reasons why that fell apart, but I remember when, yeah, we saw another band called 6 Feet Under. It was like, well, I don't think we're really going to compete with that.
So with 6 Feet Under, now honestly, when you even say the name, of course I go death metal. But
Yeah.
what was your 6 Feet Under? What was it musically?
I wouldn't call it death metal, but definitely kind of I'd say somewhere between Prong and Pantera.
Now, were you singing and playing?
I know my buddy Mick was a singer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there, and you say there are recordings of this?
Yeah.
I need to hear these
Yeah.
someday.
Yeah. And that's one of those things. We never really had a singer. We never had a reliable bass player either. I mean, I think we played a couple shows, just 2 guitars and drums.
Yeah, now you can't throw a rock without hitting a bass player.
Yeah. But we just couldn't. I don't know. We struggled to find somebody that was reliable and that kind of saw what we saw. I mean,
you were very early 20s, right? Because you're just out of college. Then.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just to find a reliable person in your very early 20s is not easy. Back in I know in my 20s, I got really lucky with Wally and Jeff. Now, Walt and I grew up together, and we really didn't get into the drugs and partying. We got into video games and like shooting basketball and just not partying. So that was helpful because I didn't get crazy corrupted in my teens. I slowly got corrupted in my 20s and then backed off in my 30s.
Yeah.
So, but early 20s, good luck finding somebody that doesn't have the wheels almost falling off.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how did you get into the Metal Massacre? Who did you know?
I was probably Decker.
But how did you run into that? Somebody in the band knew him or met him?
Well, I think just from going to shows and stuff.
Okay.
And yeah.
Yeah. Now, did you know Decker as Don Decker or Sean Decker?
Kind of knew him as Don Decker. And
Okay.
there's kind of a debate about that, isn't there?
Well, I knew him as Sean Decker, but again, I'm older and we were younger together.
Yeah.
And then I don't know where the transition of name came from, but I remember Sean Decker when we were kids.
Yeah.
And then Don Decker was like the legendary singer of Anal Blast and the man that brought together the death metal scene in the Twin Cities, you know.
Yeah.
Much respect to Mr. Don Decker.
Yeah. I remember seeing
Rest
those
in peace.
guys at a place called The Cage.
You know, Tony Williams
Back in the
actually
day.
played drums for Anal Blast for a little bit.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, he had a small stint there, and I believe you play guitar in Anal Blast too. But I remember he played drums. He was in Pentagorium, played drums. He's got way too many skills.
Yeah.
In our interview with him, just hearing him talk about how music started for him, I'm like, yep. That's not my story.
Yeah.
Okay, so Metal Massacre, all that stuff. So when you're getting into the Metal Massacre and you're meeting Sanctus and you're meeting all these other bands, this is something that I've always kind of wondered. Like when you first start music, it's you. You're hungry for music. Then you start jamming with other people. Now, all this time that you're doing that, in the back of your head, you still remember all those rock stars that you wanted to be when you were a little kid that inspired you to play. Now, when you first start hitting the music scene in your town, in your space, you see rock stars. They're not Kiss, they're not Alice Cooper, they're not Megadeth, but they're the bands doing what you want to do on that next level. So they're attainable, they're local, these are the ones that I can't be Kiss today, but I can be that guy today.
Yeah.
Who were the bands or who were the people you saw when you came in to the local music scene that made you go, I can do this. I want to be like that guy or girl.
Yeah.
Do you have any of those experiences? Do you remember the first people that you really were impressed by when you came into the scene, so to speak?
Yeah. I mean, and honestly, Sanctus was one of them. Cromlech.
Oh my
Remember
gosh,
those guys?
Yeah. Pat Robertson.
Trying to think of some of the other bands.
Now, were you just fandom of them? I mean, you met the guys in Sanctus, you hung out. I mean, I just saw Mike last week at Testament.
Oh,
kind of like
yeah.
we walked by each other. He's like, "Hey, man." I'm like, "Hey, man." And then we didn't see each other the rest of the night. But
Yeah.
but it was nice to see people out that were from my youth, you know. And
Yeah.
Sanctus at the time, you know, they were like, these kids are amazing. You know,
Yeah.
I think they opened for the Regime. I don't think they ever opened for Avalanche. They may have, but I don't remember. But when they opened for the Regime, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It's Metallica, Kill 'Em All. 16-year-olds.
Yeah.
They were great.
Yeah.
So Sanctus was the one you met, Metal Massacre, got to know them. Did you meet Pat or any of the guys from Cromlech?
No, not that I remember.
Okay.
I was still kind of, shy in general. I mean, we'd go do shows and stuff and pack up and just kind of watch. But I mean, over the years, I think, you go to these shows, keep seeing the same people,
It's community, man.
and it is. But, there's a lot of people that I don't know by name, just more by face. And just like,
hey, man,
see that dude,
how you doing, dude? What's up? Nice to see you. Right on. See you next time. What the heck was that? You get the name?
Yeah.
There was a thing, and I'm gonna expose myself a little bit here. For a lot of years, people would come up, they'd introduce themselves to me, and I just wouldn't recall the name. I've seen them a million times. I've talked to them a million times. And you don't want to be insulting and go, man, what's your name again? So in the past, I've had people whenever it's always been a standing rule. Listen, if I don't introduce this person in the first 10 seconds, it's because I can't remember their name. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm not trying to be dismissive of you with me. Please introduce yourself and get their name.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, if I don't say your name when I meet you and be like, "Hey, Jason, nice to see you again," I'm sorry. There's been a lot of people, but in my defense, there's a lot of people that come up and introduce themselves like they've known me forever because they've seen me on stage forever. They don't know me, but they know my name because they know my band. They know my name, and they'll come up and, "Hey, Stunner, hey, how you doing, man?" And I'm like, "Great." Never met them before in my life.
Yeah.
But I've always been, I'm sorry if I don't remember your name. So I definitely hear what you're saying.
I think that happens to everybody.
Yeah. So what kind of I think the big thing, like I've done a couple of these now, and I enjoy talking about the history and starting and learning and all of that. And then when you run into people in the community and you start to bond there, now we're actually in your chunk of music, your chunk of your musical life, where you really are out there and you're doing your thing. What are some of the big stories of your band experiences? I mean, I know you met your wife through one band.
Yeah.
Tell me a couple of stories of like what band it was, the adventure you had, whatever that might have been. What's something that pops out for you in any of the bands in your 20 plus years of playing?
Well, I mean, one of the ones that really stands out, it's funny because, going from 6 Feet Under and Sanctus, next thing you know, I'm playing in a band called Brett Michael and the Western Breeze, and I'm playing
Country
bass.
band?
Country band. I'm playing
Okay.
bass in a country band, and Mike G is playing guitar.
Oh my gosh!
So,
all right.
So again, I've played in bands with G since the '90s.
Okay.
And our claim to fame in that band, other than there was a couple that had a bunch of land, I think in Egan somewhere, and they used to do this thing called cowboy boots and swimming suits, and we played on their deck.
God, the visual.
They'd slaughter a pig that morning and throw it in the ground and the whole 9 yards.
I just keep seeing like people with big beards like mine and Speedos and cowboy hats.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But our claim to fame was playing in the Medina opening for Keith Urban.
Oh, nice.
And he was relatively new then. But I mean, he was a surprisingly good guitar player back then. Even I remember they did like a medley of like AC/DC and Pink Floyd and some other stuff, all instrumental stuff, and it was the bass player and Keith Urban and a mandolin player, all just at the front of the stage, all just shredding. It was really something, like country shredding.
I was going to say
that's what it was.
I've seen a lot of scenarios where really good musicians that are rock musicians couldn't make it rock, so they went and they became session players, and then they turned into country players.
Yeah.
You may think country is nothing but a little bit of twangy this, that, and the other, but there's some skill they got in those bands.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So the Medina. Now, Brett Michael and the what?
The Western Breeze.
The Western Breeze. Yep. So you were considered Western Breeze.
Yep.
And now, was Brett Michael the lead singer, guitar player, or was
he was
just
lead singer? Yep.
And no S, because then there would be Then there would be a cease and desist.
Yeah.
Brett Michael. All right. Yep. All right. So that's cool. So you took a stint away from thrash and went country.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yep. And then
it's like Ron Keel.
Yeah, there you go.
or Eric A.K. from Flotsam.
Well, he
went country.
didn't Kip Winger have a country album too?
I know he was a ballerina for a minute. I didn't know he had a country album though. But again, it comes down to songwriting. Some of that country stuff is just classic songwriting.
Yeah.
And if you're a singer-songwriter, even in a metal band, you're a songwriter, and it can translate if you really tried.
Yeah. Yeah.
Crazy enough.
Yeah. Yep. And then
What else you got?
Well, from the Breeze, then it started to evolve. I mean, it's kind of the same thing that happened with the Cause, where
The Lost Cause, the Cause.
Third set, all of a sudden, I'd get on guitar for a couple songs, and Mike G would play bass or whatever, and we'd start to mix in some Bon Jovi tunes, or trying to think of some of the other ones. But
so you're doing 3-hour nights with Bret Michael?
Yeah.
Okay, you're doing full variety band evenings.
I mean, it was mostly country, but like I say, then the third set, it started to kind of change, and there was a little bit different lineup and different songs that weren't country. We used to play at rodeo a lot, and that's when that started happening.
The rodeo in Cottage Grove?
Cottage Grove, is that where it is?
Yep.
Yeah.
And then before that, it was called the Gold Rush, I believe.
Yep.
Okay. Yep. Which is now a hole in the ground.
Yeah.
They might have built some kind of office complex there. Venues go away.
Yeah, that's too bad. That place was hopping back in the day.
We played it
1,200 people in there usually.
I think we played it when it was I think it was still a roller rink, wasn't it? Like you had the Gold Rush, or after the Gold Rush, you had rodeo, but then there was it almost was like a roller rink with the stage in the back, and it was falling apart and dilapidated. I remember TNT playing that once, and it was just like, this place has really gone down. Several owners, and just not putting the money back into it, not getting the push that it got back in the day. But
yeah.
Sorry, continue.
Well, but so over time, then Bret kind of got out of the picture, and that's where Mind's Eye formed.
So was Mike in Mind's Eye with you then?
Yep.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yep. Yeah. And then if my buddy Justin, that played in the Lost Cause, that we took into our band and played in the Cause, and then he was in Vertigo with me, and then rejoined years later in Mind's Eye.
I mean, but that's the way it is. Like when I was a kid, Wally and I just hung out together all the time, right? And then I joined his third band, Alliance. I joined that band, and then later on we formed Avalanche, and then later on we formed TNT, and then we just always, there's those people that are like your touchstones of music. You started music with these people. These were your first people that you really connected with musically. You're going to keep them around.
Yeah.
It's like a very good friend. You're going to keep them around. There's going to be many that come in and go out and enter and leave and whatever, but the ones that really connect with you, they're always going to connect.
Yep.
So you got Mind's Eye.
Yeah.
Now, are you and Mike both playing guitar?
Yep.
So it's the double mic attack.
Yeah, kind of. And he also played keys. So he did keys and guitar. And then the same kind of thing. Third set, he'd get behind the kit, and we'd be doing a 9 Inch Nails tune, or the Priest tune or something. So there was little subsets where it would just be like a 3-piece, me and Justin and Mike G, and that's where the band I met my wife with, and the female singer we had ended up marrying Justin.
Okay, so the female singer in Mind's Eye married the bass player in Mind's Eye?
Yeah.
Okay.
And she had all her friends come out. So Jamie, my wife, was one of her friends, and that's what all these gals would come out to see her perform. and that's how that
Awesome.
happened too. So it's
Awesome.
just crazy how that
I
stuff
still
works.
think it's great that she always wanted to come to shows. Like my wife, I love her to death, but shows are not easy for a significant other.
No.
When you're in the band, you show up at 6 o'clock at night to load in, to set up. You play your full 3 hour set, and then you got to tear down. So you got to think you're from like 6 o'clock at night to 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a full shift. That's 8 hours, maybe
Yeah.
9.
Yeah.
And now you're busy during those 9 hours.
Yeah.
But you fully expect your significant other to just go sit at a table for 9 hours.
Right.
I mean, that's painful. I tell my wife, I'm like, listen, I love you. Come to every show if you want to come to the show, but I understand what I'm asking you, and I'm okay if you don't want to come. You've seen the show, same show, pretty much. I mean, I'm a big ham, and I smile and I walk around and I act like a fool for 3 hours, and it's the same thing she can see at home for free every day. So that's cool though that you met your wife and that with Mind's Eye. How did Mind's Eye end then? What happened there?
There was a few different lineup changes. Like Justin and Katie had a kid. Said, well, we're gonna have to bow out of this.
Oh, gotcha.
And that's when we had Vicky Black singing. I forget the name of the Prince band, but she's keyboard player, singer, really good singer. And a few different bass players, and then eventually they came back again, Justin and Katie. Seems like every time we had a show at Salida Event Center, which is no longer there either, that's when it would be like the last show of a lineup of Mind's Eye. It's like it always ended up to be there for some reason.
Oh, really?
But
okay.
But yeah, I think it just eventually it kind of ran its course.
It seems like in a band you start out hungry for something new. You start adding material. You start talking about like, ooh, what about this song? What about that song? Ooh, what about this venue? What about that venue?
Yeah.
And then maybe it goes, oh, we're making this much money. How about making this much money? But then eventually you start playing the same venue 4 or 5 times.
Mm-hmm.
Set list hasn't changed much in the last year.
Yeah.
And it gets hard to do that same grind, especially 3-hour nights. And there's nothing new to look forward to, nothing new to be excited about. So that to me is how things run their course. It's not that you don't enjoy the people that you're jamming with and love the people that you're in a band with, but there comes a time when I've done this so much. I want something new. So I get that. That. So Mind's Eye ends. How did you meet the guys in Anthem? Was that the next thing?
It's crazy how this stuff all happens, when you think about it. But we had moved, or we were just moving. We had bought our house in Ham Lake in 2014. And so and we still had the house in White Bear. We just bought this one, and then we were going to fix that one up, get it ready to sell, and hopefully move it quick before winter hit. So I would go to White Bear after work on Mondays and putz and putter and kind of clean up stuff. And the local watering hole at the time was the Beers Tube, or a whole nother, that you could have a whole nother discussion on just the Beers Tube. But they had Monday Night Football on and free taco bar at the time. So I'd go up there and get some free tacos and have a beer and a shot and head home. And that's where I met Dale.
Okay.
And they had just moved to White Bear from Wisconsin.
Oh, wow.
And I just, I'd run into him here and there. And remember one time meeting him in there, he's like, yeah, I'm thinking about getting a drum set again. I'm getting back into it.
So this is before he even got back into playing drums?
Pretty much, wow. Yeah. He bought a drum set. Next thing you know, he's got a recording of him, I think it was a crew tune. Um, I don't remember which one it was off the top of my head now, but next thing you know, he's auditioning for this band,
Okay.
and that was Anthem.
Okay. And that's Dale Bukowski,
Yeah,
the drummer of Anthem.
yeah,
Okay.
yep. And then the next thing you know, he's like, "Yeah, we're looking for a guitar player. You should try out." I was like, "Man, I hadn't played guitar in probably 5 years at that point."
Wow. That's
And
right. I remember you saying that you were like retired and then they drug you out of retirement.
yeah,
Okay.
and it was that man. That I have to say that first couple months was rough.
Playing wise or
Just getting everything back in sync and
yeah.
getting the chops back
Yeah.
and getting the speed and dexterity back. Um, and first audition, yeah, it didn't work out.
Oh, really? So you auditioned and thanks. We'll
Yeah,
keep you on the list.
yeah. But I remember
Wow.
talking to Keith and Eric outside, and it's like, man, this would just be perfect. I mean, same vision of you're trying to do these songs justice, and that there's on a song that has two distinct guitar parts. We want both of them in there. Some of these bands just kind of slop through it and don't pay attention to those details. And like that's exactly where I'm at. That's what I want to do.
Yeah. I've been
You
in
know?
a couple of cover bands where it was like, that's good enough.
Yeah,
And it's so frustrating because you can hear the right thing
yeah,
and you can voice it over and go, well, it's just this. And you're trying to talk them through it like, no, just this, and this. It's good enough.
yeah,
And that's so like, oh, it's
yeah,
not good enough.
yeah. Good enough for what or for who? But
So how long were you in Anthem before I came along?
oh gosh,
Was it a year, 2 years, 3 years?
yeah, gosh, probably 3 years.
Okay, because there was like a Caleb, I think, on guitar, right?
Yeah,
And then there was like two bass. I was like the third or fourth bass player.
yeah,
So Anthem is the band that we were in together. Just to let everyone know, and it was kind of the brainchild of Keith, who was the lead singer. Uh, Amazing guy, just just a phenomenal person. But the thing that captivated me was the first time I heard him was video, and I was like, "Oh my God, it's David Coverdale and Sammy Hagar together, and it's really good." And he's not playing "I Can't Drive 55." He's doing something that's a B cut, but still familiar.
yeah,
And it was just so compelling for me that's why I wanted to jam.
yeah.
So you're in there for 3 years, going through this, that, and the other, and then let's fast forward to what was your thoughts the night that I walked in there? Because I know I was like one of two bass players that night, and we came in, and I think we did the songs that we were supposed to, and then out of nowhere we did Fastway,
Yeah.
and I was like, all right, let's give this a try. And I think we played it all the way through, and not horrible. It wasn't horrible,
No.
but it was okay.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was, and I don't even remember who the other bass player was, which is an indicator of what my feelings were. It was like, I thought immediately, it's like, that's a clear choice. I mean, dude's got it.
Cool.
And same attention to detail. Yeah. I mean, it just like completed the lineup, at at the time because I was was Wes in there by
No,
then?
I remember our conversations that night, and I was like, I was very into it, and it was very exciting to me to jam with people that actually did care about the music and wanting to put it out there the way it was on the album. And I don't know if it was that jam or the next jam, but I was like, we really need a rhythm guitar player or another guitar player, not necessarily rhythm, but another guitar player. Because at the time, Eric was playing guitar on some stuff, playing keyboards on some stuff.
Yes.
And I was
right.
like, we've got something here if we can get another guitar player, and we've got a 6-piece. And I remember talks about, well, it splits the money this way or that way. And to me, it was like, I was at an age now where I've done all this and all that cover band wise. And if I was going to do this, I wanted to do it for the right reason. I wanted the music to be spot on. Let's give it the way it is, you know. That's Gus.
Hey, Gus.
Otherwise known as Poopy. And he apparently wants to be in this podcast today. So until he annoys the heck out of you, I'll let him be there. He can have his 10 minutes of fame.
Yeah.
But that was the thing for me, and that's what I really liked about Anthem was the everyone in the band wanted it to be the best performance, to the point where, you know, I would have Keith, our singer, walk up to me and go, you know, what you're playing there is very close, but I think you need to be a little more staccato with your notes and not let them ring out. And I'd be like, you telling me how to play my bass?
Yeah.
But he was right. For that
Yeah.
song, that was what was needed. And he would come up to you about tone. He would come up to Dale about specific beats. I mean, to me, that showed a level of caring and passion that mattered.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what made it work for me, and that's what made me want to be part of that for a long time.
And that was the most rewarding part about it for me, was just that attention to detail and that willingness that everyone had to be held to that standard and have an open enough mind to not be insulted and to be able to take criticism. I mean, we nitpicked everything, you know, whether it was harmonies, transitions, intros, outros. I mean,
and there were songs that we would pick where we would be so hungry about that song, wanting to do that song and loving that song, and then we would go through it 4 or 5 times and go, we're not going to get there.
yeah,
And we would let that song go.
yeah.
I think Too Late was one of those.
Well, we were listening to that outside the other day, and I told Jamie that it's like, I think we played that song once and never played it again.
Yeah, it never sounded as good as we felt it should have sounded.
Yeah.
And, you know, part of that, I think, is Def Leppard's production is insane. But we also had 5 singers.
Yeah.
We should have been able to do dang near anything.
Yeah.
So what are you up to now? You're still doing music a little bit, but you're just not in an active band, so to speak, right?
Right.
So tell me a little bit about what you're doing now musically that keeps you satisfied and what your thoughts are for future.
Well, right now I'm pretty much just playing at church once, twice a month. And that's been a good experience. The worship team is there's a lot of great musicians there.
And that's not covers? That's what is that?
Well,
that
yeah, no, it's so you know, we do a lot of elevation worship. That's just a group that's got a lot of songs. I mean, Brandon Lake is part of that. He's got a couple bigger songs out there. David Hislop is a huge guitar player in the kind of the worship field, and he's part of that too. But
so do you guys actually like play a set, or is it like in between?
Yeah. It's essentially is usually 2-3 songs at the beginning of the service, and then 2 songs at the end.
Okay, cool.
So,
and that's keeping you fulfilled so far. Guitar wise and everything.
I mean, I got fit for all clear in-ear monitors and got a Helix, and I never liked in-ears, but man, those all clears sound awesome. And
I keep hearing that. Someday I might have to go there.
Yeah,
I'm still a monitor guy. I mean, it's just old school, and it's hard for me to let go. I tried in-ears when I was in 5-minute major, and as a bass player, you need multiple drivers to feel that depth, and I didn't have that, so it really turned me off on it. So if I decide to invest again, you got to invest a lot of money.
Yeah.
to get there. So
yeah, mine
that's
were
my
about
thing.
$800, so they're not cheap.
Yeah, that's my thing
But
too.
but again, they're fitted to your ears. I mean, you get used to it, and it sounds great. You know, band wise, I'm always so busy with repair work too. I kind of think about it every once in a while. It's like I'm not sure how I really pulled that off. Because I'm working at the store full time, but I mean, there's a lot of structural jobs I'm doing on the weekends and stuff,
Yeah.
and then squeezing in that rehearsal and gigs on the weekend. It's like, man, that's a lot.
You would like, I would text you the day of practice and say, "Hey, did you work on that song?" And Gus is like all about your hair. Like he's just, "What's up, man?" And I would text you and go, "Did you work on that song?" I'll give it a listen a little bit. And then you show up and practice and play it like damn near perfect. That's got to be from all the studying you did in your teens, learning music theory or learning what notes should be there.
Yeah.
And then if these people are professionals, they're probably putting those notes where they should be. So you'd have like not necessarily a full-on blueprint, but kind of a plot line as to what it should be doing.
Yeah.
And you would just kind of noodle your way through and hit it. So
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it's just a gift, or if it's something that's just gained by experience. The ability to kind of listen to something and envision where and how it's going to be played. Like what position you're going to be in, and
well, I think, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think it comes down to like, even in business, like, I've been a manager for years, and there's a lot of things that I would do to help elevate and develop my team that I knew was the right thing to do. But then later on, when I'm taking classes to be a better manager, I'm seeing the foundation or the reason that I was doing what I was doing naturally. So maybe musically, same thing. It's like when you're a kid and you're listening to that music so intently and kind of figuring it out here, and then you start studying modes and theory and things like that. Now you've got the foundation to what you did naturally, and it's like, makes sense. It clicks. It's like this big opening of like, okay, I got it. I got it now.
Yeah.
So maybe that's where that is. As far as you as a luthier and as a guitar, hell, just an instrument guy, just the innovativeness to create the tools you need to get the job done blows me away. And I've seen a lot of your works, and if that's what you do for the rest of your life, you are giving so much musically to the community.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, I kind of I mean, somebody's got to do some of that stuff.
So Mike let the cat out of the restroom. he was fine until Mike let the cat out of the restroom. So let's just wrap it up. To me, I know we don't spend enough time together anymore since we're not in a band together. But you were always one of my biggest fans and friends and kind of my colleague in Anthem. When we would have debates about what we're doing next or what we're doing next, you were the one I always wanted to have on my side, or I wanted to know what your thoughts were on it. I mean, there was times where people would show up for load in like 2.5 to 3 hours before the show. And I know like very early on, we had been in bands for 20 years going, we don't need to be here this early. So when we started talking about that, like, all right, I'll see you an hour before.
Yeah.
But that was something. It's one thing that with Anthem, other than the fan base was great, the people that came along for the ride came along for the whole ride. They got it, they enjoyed it, they liked it. They're still trying to get us to do more shows. I think my thing on that is it's really hard to get 6 people that have lives to come back together after a year or two off and put 3 hours of music back together as good as it was 3 to 4 years ago.
Yeah.
That's the challenge, and it's really one heck of a challenge.
Yeah.
I don't know if we'll do another one, but it's not for lack of want. I think all of us loved that band and would probably still want to be in that band if Eric lived here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we could still do it. But so there's the answers for the Anthemites out there. Mike, thank you so much for doing this. I know you weren't sure if you would have a lot to say, but to me, you had a lot to say, and I learned a lot. So thanks for coming and hanging out.
Well, thanks for having me. It's been my pleasure.
Absolutely.